Welcome back to Sustainable Energy. In this episode, we are looking at how nature-based solutions can help the construction industry go greener on a larger scale. Let's head over to Vancouver, a Canadian city turning its green credentials into action, and where one architect is using repurposed wood to build skyscrapers. Let's find out why and how.
Built the first tall wood building in North America. And since then, there's been others that have been built around the world. I'm Michael Green. Our company's Michael Green Architecture, and we also run a school called Design Build Research. You know, I guess I got into architecture because I loved making things, I loved building things, I loved the creativity of that, but I also loved the idea that through that I could be serving my community. This building uses a material called cross-laminated timber, or CLT, we call it. And what it is taking small pieces of wood, gluing them together at right angles to each other to make these giant panels, 10 feet wide, 60 feet long, massive panels. And what that does by making them so big is it allows us to tilt up and build this building very quickly, very efficiently, and very robustly, which is what we want to do. It's a building that we want to last for centuries. When we decided what we would wrap the wood with to protect it, because you need to protect it from weather, we decided it would be brick for this building. The products we make are really big engineered products. They allow us to build really big buildings, in fact, skyscraper buildings. But also that means that we can take small trees that maybe are damaged by the mountain pine beetle here in North America, which is a huge problem actually triggered by climate change, so trees that are dead are dying. Forestry is a complicated animal, and different parts of the world, in some places that it's not sustainable, we're not replanting at a fast rate. But when we get it right, meaning we're replanting, we can actually create a harmony where we're growing more trees, young trees are sequestering carbon faster than old trees, and we can actually create a cycle of planting trees and using wood that actually captures more carbon than if we just left the forest as a native forest.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
In front of us is one of the great moments in Canada where you've got Canada geese crossing the street and everybody has to wait. This is our office. We have about 65 people here in the office working on projects of all different types and scales. We have several projects for tall wood buildings in France and in Eastern Canada and the United States. Building codes are changing to allow us to build really tall wood buildings. That's a big game changer. The United States has changed its code. Canada's changed its code. Throughout Europe, they're changing the codes. China's changed the code. These are the things that we need to see happen in order for us to change the way we build and start to address this climate crisis that we're all ultimately in. Wood is an insulator as compared to steel and concrete, which are highly conductive materials. So it actually resists the amount of movement of heat, either from outside in a hot climate or from inside out in a cold climate.
We were one of the first municipalities to take on the STEP code, so all our buildings need to be at STEP level 3. We also have been an early adopter of looking at tall wood timber buildings, so those are buildings that can be made out of wood up to 12 stories tall. So sustainability in all forms emulates out through all that we do in terms of our built environment. When we were expanding City Hall, it was really important for us that who was hired also reflected that core value.
I think our industry is committed to being influential in the climate conversation globally. One of the things we really advocate for is a shifting of our mindset of how we invest into big thinking to solve climate change in new ways with new innovations around growing materials.
Well, our expert for this show is Christina Gamboa from the World Green Building Council. We saw wood being used as a material for skyscrapers. It seems like a fairly innovative idea, but is it really realistic to use wood on such large-scale projects?
Increasingly so. It's amazing. The technology innovations in the wood industry have enabled cross-laminated timber to become a reality, and it's become, as we saw, being used in very ambitious projects, which is really interesting to see.
Vancouver is a signatory to your organisation's net zero carbon buildings commitment. Businesses, organisations, cities, states, they can sign up. But what's been the response from the likes of governments?
Government has been catching up and following, let's say, the leadership from cities and businesses, because we have shown the vision of the possible. And we have seen, for example, recently, the new Green Deal from the EU has a lot of things that are critical for the built environment in the future. And that sheds a light for the developing world too, to leapfrog and go into low carbon cities and solution instead of having them go into, let's say, a polluted way of development, and also address that cities are livable and people can thrive and generations to come can enjoy the beautiful planet we have enjoyed.
The UN's requesting that countries that signed up to the Paris Agreement submit their updates and revisions for their plans to reduce emissions in 2020, an important year. What are your hopes?
This year, our hopes are that governments do bring up greater ambition in their buildings commitment, recognizing that the building and construction industry is critical to delivering on the climate emergency, and that they get inspired by the business champions that we're seeing, the vision of the possible, the city policies, and that we can bring the solutions we know exist that are economically feasible and bring social benefits up to scale.
Christina, many thanks for your time today. Plenty of constructive thoughts there from Christina on how we can lower a building's carbon footprint. And that's going to be essential. The UN saying we're going to have to lower global emissions by 7.6% every year for the next 10 years if we are to stay within the 1.5 Celsius temperature rise that scientists say is essential.
Thanks, Christina, and thank you, James. As we've just seen, policymakers, architects and experts are working together to better the construction sector, from launching new financing schemes and committing to energy best practices, to building with sustainable materials and reducing and recycling construction waste. Well, that's it for this edition of Sustainable Energy. If you'd like to comment on this program or on our theme this year, nature-based solutions, then do get in touch on Twitter at CNBC Energy. Take care of yourselves and your loved ones. Until next time, goodbye.